Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. It's finally starting to warm up, so I've been crafting my summer TBR. I love making a TBR, especially if it's seasonally relevant. Have I ever stuck to a TBR? No. But do I continue to make them every season? Yes, of course. So I have 12 books on my list today. I typically can read about 4 books a month, so I think this is a pretty good sized list, pretty realistic for me. I've got some new releases, sci-fi, fantasy, and horror on my list. I'm hoping all of these will give me some sort of summery vibe, even if they don't all take place exactly in the summer. I typically like to read books that are a little more intense, a little more scary in the summer, so I think these will fit the bill. We'll see. Also, I should say I really like going into books almost completely blind, so for a lot of these I don't really know exactly the premise and the plot, but I just have kind of a general vibe that we're going with. So let's start out with new releases. I typically don't read new releases for a couple different reasons. For one, I just don't really trust the reviews right when a book comes out. I like to wait till the initial excitement kind of wears off and more people have read them, more people have digested them. I also typically just read books from the library, so obviously getting a new release from the library is pretty difficult. The waitlist can be months long, and even if I wanted to buy it new, I hate hardcovers, so I'd have to wait till the paperback comes out anyways. All that to say, I don't typically read new releases, but there are 2 books coming out in the next 2 months from 2 of my favorite authors at the moment, so I'm just really excited, and I really hope I can get to these at some point this summer. So my first new release on this list is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, which just came out May 13th. I read the First Law trilogy earlier this year and instantly fell in love with it. I love Joe Abercrombie's writing, and the First Law has some of my favorite characters of all time. From what I can tell, this one looks like it's going to be a bit different from his usual work. It's still fantasy, but it's more horror leaning, and it definitely has some religious horror elements, which is one of my favorite subgenres of horror, so I'm so excited for this one. I also don't really know anything about it other than that, so I'm just trusting that Joe Abercrombie will deliver. I have this one on hold right now, so I'm praying that it comes in soon. I can't wait. The next new release I have on here is, of course, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab, which comes out June 10th. I've read almost every book by V.E. Schwab except some of her YA stuff, and I just love her writing. I love how every book she writes is so different, and she has such a crazy range as a writer, which I really respect. I'm also going into this one almost completely blind. All I know is that it has toxic lesbian vampires, so that's really all I need to know. But I know the waitlist for this one's gonna be crazy, so this one might have to be pushed off till fall. I do think this one would be such a good, like, late summer, early fall read because of the vampires, so I'm just hoping the timing of my library hold will work out perfectly so I can read it then. The first non-new release I have is The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I've been wanting to read this one for a while now, and I just haven't gotten to it. I've heard such great things about it. The first sentence on the blurb says, "Two warriors shepherd an ancient god across a broken land to end the tyrannical reign of a royal family," and that by itself just has me hooked. I've also heard that the writing style is super unique, and it's designed more as oral storytelling, which I think is so interesting. I just love a book that can do something that I've never seen before, so I'm very excited for this one. Next, I have a few sci-fis I want to get to. First is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This one's been on my TBR for like a year at this point, and I just haven't gotten to it. This is a dystopian, post-apocalyptic novel about 40 women who are imprisoned underground. They have no memory of how they got there or what life was like before. It seems like one of those books where you start out super confused, and slowly over the course of the book, new details and information are revealed to you, which is just one of my favorite things in a book. So I'm very excited about this. I've heard great things about it, so this is definitely on the top of my list for this summer. I also really want to get to Parable of the Talents by Octavia E. Butler. I read Parable of the Sower earlier this year, and I absolutely loved it. This is another dystopian novel written in the 90s, but set in a dystopian 2024, where fires and drought ravage California, and society has basically devolved into anarchy, with violence, poverty, and drug addiction running wild. I loved the first one, but I definitely needed a breather after it. It's a pretty tough read, but I think I've had enough time and I'm ready to dive into the second one. The next sci-fi I have that I want to get to is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This book came out like 10 years ago at this point, but for some reason it's having a crazy resurgence right now. I've heard so many good things about this book, and I really just want to see what all the hype is about. So this book is about an expedition to Area X, which is a region that's been cut off from the rest of the world for decades. 11 expeditions have come before, all ending in disaster, and now we are following the 12th expedition. I'm just so intrigued by this premise. I love a good sci-fi that takes place in some sort of alien world. Based on the reviews, this seems seems like one of those books that you either love or hate, so I'm very interested to see which camp I fall into. Also, the cover redesigns are so good. I really hope that I love this book so I can allow myself to buy a copy of the new ones. Okay, now getting into horror. For some reason, I tend to read horror exclusively in the summer. I think for me, summer's already pretty horrific because I hate being hot, so I think horror is just very fitting for that. The first horror book I want to get to is Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I have been wanting to read this for so long at this point, but the Libby wait is always so long, so I just have been putting it off. But I finally got a hold on it, and it's about 10 weeks wait, so hopefully it comes in early and I can get to it this summer. This is a novel about a woman whose wife goes on a deep sea mission and comes back different. I've heard this described as a fever dream, which is honestly my favorite type of book. I also find the deep sea pretty terrifying, so I think this one will scare me pretty good. And it's gay, so what more could you ask for? And yeah, I'm so excited about this one. I just know I'm gonna love it. So next I have just an author I really want to get to, and that is Rivers Solomon. All of their work just sounds exactly like what I'd be into. I think I'm just gonna see which of their books is available at the library and let that decide which one I read. I've really been wanting to read Model Home. I'll read part of the blurb for that one, which says, Rivers Solomon turns the haunted house story on its head, unearthing the dark legacies of segregation and racism in the suburban American South. Unbridled, raw, and daring, Model Home is the story of secret histories uncovered and of a queer family battling for their right to live, grieve, and heal amid the terrors of contemporary American life. And that just sounds incredible. I would really love to get to this one. However, this one just came out last year, so I think it might be pretty difficult to get my hands on that one, but we'll see. If I can't read that one, I'm definitely going to give one of their other books a try. The Deep would be perfect for summer. It's about mermaids, and Sorrowland also looks incredible. So yeah, I have plenty of options. They are definitely on the top of my list for the summer. And lastly, I have just a general subcategory of horror that I really want to read from this summer, and that is Indigenous horror. So first on my list is the only one that I actually have a physical copy for, and that is Never Whistle at Night. This is a horror short story collection written by all Indigenous authors. Like I said earlier, I don't typically buy books new, especially before I've read them, but I was at my favorite bookstore for local bookstore day, and I saw this and I just had to buy it. And I mean, the cover is just so pretty. I had to. But aside from the cover, I'm just really excited to get to this. I've heard such good things about it. And with short story collections, I really like to read just one or two stories here and there and kind of spread it out over a long period of time. So it's nice to have the physical copy, and I think I will be doing that with this throughout the course of the entire summer. So I'm really excited about that. And if you've read this, please let me know what you thought and which ones were your favorites. So from that book, I kind of went down a rabbit hole of finding other Indigenous horror books. In general, my favorite type of horror are ones that explore some real-world horror like racism or homophobia. They're always just the most interesting to me and the most terrifying because they're so rooted in reality. So first is a very popular book, which is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This one has been on my TBR for like 2 or 3 years at this point, and I just honestly have been too scared to read it. I've heard that this one is very scary. I'm a little worried, but I want to challenge myself to read scarier books. This is about a group of friends who are haunted by a mistake from their youth by this vengeful entity. The blurb describes the author as the Jordan Peele of horror literature, so I'm in just from that. As I said, I am a little worried this one will give me nightmares, but I'm committing. I'm ready to do it. I've also been wanting to read Bad Cree by Jessica Johns, which I don't really know much about except that it's a paranormal horror, and I've heard it leans a little more literary, so I'm very intrigued by that, and I'm really hoping I can get to this one. And lastly, another Indigenous author I've been hearing so much about is Nick Medina, so I've been thinking of picking up Sisters of the Lost Nation. This book draws from the real-life issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women. It follows a young girl trying to find answers about the women and girls who have disappeared from her tribe, and I've seen a lot of people saying that this is a very emotional read, and it's so much more than just a horror novel, so I'm very interested in this one. I think it will be a beautiful read, and I'm so excited. So that is the end of my summer TBR. I'm sure there are some books on here that I'm not going to get to, especially those new releases, depending on my library holds. And these are probably not the only books I'll get to this summer. I lean more towards a mood reader, so I definitely don't usually stick to my TBR. And like I said, I pretty much read from the library, so I'm kind of at liberty as to what's available and when my holds come in. I do have most of these books already on hold, but knowing the library, they're all going to come in at once, and I'm just going to get overwhelmed by how many books I have to read. I am very interested to see if posting this video will hold me more accountable to stick to my TBR, but I guess guess we'll find out. I'll check back in at the end of the summer. And with all that, thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books, what you thought, and if you have any more recommendations for me that just scream summer, especially horror books with the summery vibe. I hope you liked this video, and I hope you maybe found something new to add to your TBR. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!